Welcome to Young Money with Tracy Bissett, the advice show for young millionaires in the making. It's time for some $1 Million Straight Talk with Tracy, President and Chief Financial Fitness Trainer at Bissett Financial Fitness. Each week, Tracy's going to tell you what you need to know now at the beginning of your earning curve. Basic and advanced financial concepts made clear, healthy money habits and the missteps to avoid, and all the stuff that you can do to set yourself up for a future of fantastic financial freedom. Ready to lace up and start this week's financial fitness training? Let's do it, Tracy.
Welcome to Young Money with Tracy Bissett. I'm so pleased today to welcome our guest, Laura Beauparlant, to the show. Welcome, Laura.
Thanks, Tracy. I'm happy to be here.
So great to have you. So Laura is the owner and creative director of Lab Creative. In her 18 years as a designer and entrepreneur, she has learned that aligning authenticity with brand design is a key ingredient to success in business. More than anything, Laura loves the chemistry she creates with people and believes the most important element in fostering those relationships is communication. She's an award-winning public speaker, offering inspirational and passion-filled presentations on branding and design to entrepreneurs and small business owners. So welcome again, Laura.
Thanks.
So I'd love to start with you telling us a little bit more about your business and what you do with your clients.
Great, thanks. So obviously, like you said in my bio, I own a branding and design company. I'm based in Toronto called Lab Creative. And what we do is, our mission is to help clients develop confidence and clarity and ultimately to build a really strong, memorable brand foundation. And we do that through our online course called Brand Camp. And then from there, we help them really express what they've built in that foundation into their work, into their brand visually. And that's through logo design, business cards, and stationery, social media graphics, sort of what most people typically think of when they think of branding.
Wonderful. And I know you're a really successful professional. You've worked really hard to get here. How did you arrive at your success today?
Wow, it's kind of a loaded question, but I'll take you back to college. I studied graphic design, and just after starting my second year, I was in a head-on collision with a drunk driver. And obviously that kind of changed everything for me. I was 18 years old, and I spent the next 2 years in and out of hospital and recovering from this really tragic and, well, not tragic, but kind of horrific event in my life.
Oh, my gosh.
And, I did go back and I finished my education, which was extremely important to me. I really love design. I love what I do, and I didn't let that stop me. But then ultimately, I realized that I needed some life experience that was so radically different from that recovery mode that I had been experiencing. And I decided to move overseas, and I lived in London, England for a year and Copenhagen for 2 years. And that whole, this accident and then followed with my life overseas has really transformed and informed everything I do and everything I bring to the table as, a business owner and a human being and as a mother and a wife and all of the things that I do in my life.
That's quite an experience that you've had, and certainly with all the adventures and traveling once you finished your schooling, you must have had quite a positive outlook on life.
Absolutely, I really do. I mean, I definitely went through some dark times, I'm not going to lie, but I had a really supportive community, and I got the help I needed for my mental health, which I think is important to mention, that it wasn't just the fixing of the broken parts of my body, but I had to really recover from the emotional and mental trauma of what I had experienced. And I think it's important to mention because it really did help me recover as well as I did. And ultimately, I've gone on to do everything that they told me I would probably never do again. So I'm pretty proud of that.
That's wonderful. And it shows the power of determination, bravery, courage, and just having the right mindset as you go and approach it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what would you say has been your biggest turning point or revelation in your life from a financial perspective?
So, For me, I've had a job, I think since I was like 12 years old. I started working at a local restaurant sort of in the back. I like to earn money. I like to save it. Then I got a job. I worked at a donut shop and I worked at McDonald's and Swiss Chalet and some other like restaurants and bars. I can still carry my plates like I did at Swiss Chalet. I can still carry 4.
It's funny you should say that because when I was younger, in junior high and high school, I always wanted to work at Swiss Chalet. I thought it would be the best place to work. And I did in grade 11 and 12 work in a restaurant as a waitress and all the way through university, but never at Swiss Chalet.
Yeah, and it was such a great group of people. Like I had such fond memories of the people I worked with and the experience of working there. They actually, I was working there when I was in my car accident. And so I was in a place where I couldn't go to school, I couldn't work, I was so focused on my recovery, but I'll tell you, I was so bored of myself, and I had nothing other than my recovery to talk about or to do, and I was like, well, I'm sick of me, so other people must be sick of me. So I actually volunteered at Swiss Chalet to go in on some of their busy days to take phone orders and just sit in the back office because I had, crutches and that. So I could sit in the back office and I'm like, you can just pay me with a quarter chicken dinner.
Oh, that's so nice.
And like the ability to socialize with people. So, I also see work as, in terms of financial life as important because your work is where you spend a lot of your time. And if you didn't have that, I remember people saying, oh, it must be so great to not have to go to school and work. And I'm like, I would do anything to be able to do all of those things right now, no matter how hard they were. So I also gained a real appreciation for work and being physically able to work and to walk up a flight of stairs and to do all of those things that were taken away from me. So I have probably a greater appreciation than others, but so we got a little off track, but.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you must have been worried during your recovery. Am I going to get better? Am I going to be able to work? Am I able to support myself in the future? And is there anything you did from a financial standpoint or plans that you put in place to kind of help you as you move forward?
Yeah. So when I was about 22, I things kind of settled up from the accident, and I ended up getting a settlement. Not like a crazy amount of money like you would in some other countries, but, it was still a substantial amount of money. And I was given the opportunity to put that into an annuity, a tax-free annuity.
And so just for our listeners to put it in context, how would you describe an annuity in kind of layman's terms?
It is I guess it's an insurance policy. I don't know if that's the right term. Tracy, maybe you know better, where it's an insurance company who basically is taking that money and they're investing it, and then they're giving me back that money over a period of time. But I don't have to pay income tax on the money that I get from that investment. So it's like investing money without having to pay tax on that money.
And then it is returned to you in lump sums on certain milestones or dates.
Exactly, yeah. Okay. So for me, they kind of presented me with all of these, kind of templates of how they typically structure these annuities. And I looked at them and, even at 22, and I don't know if it's because I just gained a lot of wisdom in that period of time, I kind of looked at them and none of them really fit what I felt, that nothing felt right. So I ended up asking, because, if you don't ask, you don't get. So I asked, can I design my own annuity plan?
That's incredible. I can't imagine most people would have the presence of mind and financial savvy to be thinking about that at that point in their life and after everything that they've gone through.
Yeah, and I guess that just goes to show the kind of person I am. I'm a true doer, and I like things done a certain way, I guess, and I just didn't feel like any of these fit that. So I guess that's also part of the reason why I own my own business, is because I wanted to design my life and my business the way that I wanted to live. So this is really no different. This is just a financial decision I made to help me build and design the life I wanted.
And so when you were designing your annuity and thinking about the future life you wanted to have, what were the sorts of elements you thought might come up, and how did you want the money to support you?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to travel. Like I said, I moved overseas, and I thought I'm going to need a bit of money liquid to start my journey. And so I kept a chunk of it out, and I put the rest of it away for 10 years. And I thought, okay, 10 years, I'm going to be like 32 years old. Maybe I'll be married, maybe I'll be wanting to buy a house or renovate a house. So let's get like a bigger chunk of that money when I'm in my early 30s, because that's when I'm going to need it, right? Mm-hmm. So ironically, we were renovating our house and all of that money I got at that time, we put towards our home renovation. So
it's almost like you had a crystal ball.
I did. I had a crystal ball. It worked out really well. Not that everything does. I'm not trying to say that like life is all, rainbows and unicorns and sunshine, but I planned that well. Then I set it up that I get a monthly amount every month. It's not a huge amount, but, it covers some expenses. It just kind of helps make life just a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And that goes, it's guaranteed until I'm 65. If I were to go before 65, but it goes until I die, essentially. Like if I live to be 105, I will continue to get the monthly amount until then. Then every 5 years, I get another lump sum. And the idea there was that, well, I do love to travel. And I believe that life experience is a huge part, and travel and exploring really informs and educates and makes people more well-rounded as human beings, especially when you can visit different cultures and see things through a different lens. So the goal is to really put that money towards some kind of a really big family trip every 5 years. Although we do travel in between, but this is going to focus on some really cool adventure.
Well, that's really interesting, and I like your point that you bring up around experiences. As you know, with financial matters and money, everyone places values on different things. Everyone has an emphasis on something else, and there's no one way to spend your money. And I, too, place a lot of value on experiences. I love music. I love to go to live concerts. And while some people would view that to be a waste of money, it's not as high value for them. For me, that's how I choose to. So as long as people are living within their means, they have the flexibility to choose how they spend their money and what they spend it on.
Exactly. I mean, I still love things, right? Like I like to have nice clothes. I'm not going to lie. I still like nice things, but I'm also about quality over quantity. So typically I will spend more on an item and get something really like that's well crafted that will actually last, as opposed to like a lot of stuff that's really cheap and will just get me by for because I've made those decisions and then thought, well, if I just bought the right boots to begin with, I wouldn't have to replace them every year, So
absolutely.
We've all made those decisions, but ultimately when you think about your life, what are the things that you really remember the most? It's the places you went, the people you visited, the experiences you had. Even my kids, they don't talk about necessarily the things they own or the toys they have. They talk about the trip we made or the thing we did on a trip or the person we met on a trip, so you can really see that it is such an important part of life in general.
Well, and it's just so wonderful and amazing that you had the forethought to think about what your life may be like and then kind of match up those financial inflows with the timing. So really well done.
Thanks.
Very inspiring and very financially fit. It's wonderful.
Thanks.
And so you've lived many years. You've got your business. You're an entrepreneur. You're managing the finances. What are some things or one major thing that you wish you'd known earlier in your life about finances, money, all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, probably budgeting. I'm not a numbers person, Tracy, like you. I'm a creative person, and I married a creative person. So he is better than numbers with me. So he ultimately, helped me originally with like pricing structure and like how to calculate, all of these various things that I was like, I hadn't thought of as a creative starting a business. So it's quite interesting to be in my position. I've owned my business for almost 14 years in a creative field, starting out as a designer who really knew nothing about running a business. I luckily had a few people in my life that, were entrepreneurs or had business minds that, I could kind of pull from. And I also learned from mistakes. But budgeting and hiring a bookkeeper and somebody who, like, earlier on, that could really give me a handle on the dollars and cents of my business, where the money was going. I think I would have done that sooner and gotten much clearer from an earlier stage. Now, my business has been profitable since I started. Doesn't mean I've always made a ton of money, but I think my first year in business, I made like $12,000. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I've never really borrowed money. I built it on my own sweat equity.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I think my determination and my love of what I do has helped me have the ability to go and learn what I've needed to learn, or now hire the right people, like a bookkeeper and an accountant, to kind of help me with some of those big picture things. I'm still not a numbers, like I can look at it and go, okay, there's money in the bank account, but.
Oh, no.
But I do that, but then I'm like, I also know like what's coming in and what's going out. So I do have a very clear picture of that.
Wonderful.
But I do get really happy when I see like big numbers in my bank account.
Oh, of course.
And then I have to go and go, okay, so where does some of this money have to go and what's going to be left? So I'm also still a practical person at the end of the day. I'm a practical designer, and practical with money, but sometimes I do make those big splurges as well.
And again, everybody gets to make their own choices on how they spend their money. And so I'm teasing Laura a little bit when I was saying how she monitors her bank account and decides what to do, because often a challenge for small business owners is that they run their business based on the balance in the bank account. And as Laura knows, and as we both know, you need to manage all the inflows and the outflows and see what's going on, not just the balance in your bank account on a given day.
Yeah, I brought that up because of your comment the other day. So I thought that was the perfect moment. Yeah, exactly.
So since you're a self-admitted non-numbers person, so who would inspire you when it comes to financial matters?
Great question. So I have to say my parents have always inspired me. My mom is a retired teacher, and my dad came to Canada as an immigrant back in the late 60s. He didn't speak English. He had $250 in his pocket and a trade. He was a carpenter by trade. And he did whatever it took to, learn the language, make money, but he trained in so many, he's had multiple different careers over the years, but he never worked like full time. He never had regular hours. Like he was always, he had different jobs, very like wide ranging, like carpentry to real estate. His last career was as a corporate pilot.
Wow.
He flies model airplanes. He's a world champion model airplane pilot and was actually paid to represent a brand. So that is also why I love to travel, because I grew up traveling in a station wagon with a trailer model airplane contest my entire childhood. So it was not your typical life. In many ways, like growing up, and seeing how he worked, and he also had a lot of foresight. Like he got out of the real estate market before things really went bad in the 80s, because he could see it coming. But when I think of how he worked his way up, they also bought real estate. And that's how they were able to retire from careers that weren't really didn't offer huge abundance financially. They have ultimately been able to retire extremely well because of financial decisions that they made in how they spent money and taking risks to buy properties back like in the maybe 70s or early 80s. And that ultimately has helped them, be very secure in their retirement.
It's interesting you should focus on the real estate aspect because often that is a way that people can quickly build up value, especially in markets that are appreciating. Mm-hmm. In an episode that's to come, we are interviewing on the podcast Alexandra Cote, who is a top real estate agent at the Sandra Renomato brokerage in Toronto, and she gives some tips and tools to help the listeners as they approach the rental market, as well as when they start looking into home ownership and how do you go about it, because real estate is such an important part of building your wealth.
It is. And I know, we own a house in Toronto, and we're like, okay, we've always thought about getting even further into the real estate market from like a owning and rental perspective, but it's a tough market to get into. So, we haven't quite been able to figure that out, but it is still something that we consider because we've seen how that can, bring financial success.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've gotten to know you quite a bit through the stories you've shared with us. If you could tell us about the top 3 success factors you think have led you to where you are today and all the success you've been able to accomplish, what would you say the big 3 are for you?
Yeah, so ultimately, I'm extremely persistent. I'm a doer, right? You've obviously gotten that from this whole call. I don't take no for an answer easily. It doesn't mean I don't get beat down, but I'm really good at picking myself back up and going, okay, what's next? When I do get into sort of low times, I surround myself with people that I know will help me build me back up if I'm feeling a certain way. So I kind of know, where my weaknesses lie from that perspective, but ultimately I'm a doer. I make stuff happen for myself, for my business, for my family. The second is that I'm outgoing, and I've gotten known for my communication skills. That's a big part of how I've built my business. It's a lot about the experience of working with us, not just the design work and the branding that we provide. It also helps that I'm very organized. And then, ultimately at the end of the day, a reason why I'm successful is that I am really, really good at what I do. I'm going to be humble but not modest, I guess, in that statement. And so thankfully I have all the skills that I've already mentioned to really provide that finished product for my clients, but also with a really amazing experience. And that's, I would say, so, persistence, being outgoing, communications, and then just being really good at what I do.
Well, that's wonderful. And I would agree with all of that. And just to share a quick story of how we met, we were at a networking event, and Laura was handing out her business cards, and she has them of many different colors in the rainbow. And so I got my card. I got yellow. I don't personally like yellow very much as a color. And she saw me with kind of a weird look on my face, and she said, "Oh, if you want, you can trade it for a different color." And so I said, okay, I'd like to have a green one, please. And so even in her business cards, which most people can take as just something you need to be in business, something with your contact information, she's made it a beautiful design. And by doing the different colors, it appeals to different people. And we were able to have a big conversation, and it's led to a friendship just starting out on what color is the card. So.
Yeah, it was so interesting. And then what I found really interesting, and this just goes to, and what led me to write a blog post about, our business cards dead, is because suddenly everybody in this networking event wanted to see wanted one of my cards. And then it became this, it was such an interesting kind of experiment in the importance of having a brand, which is obviously what I do, and your business cards and everything, your website and everything be an extension of you as a person and what you offer. So I'm so glad we've met and that started a beautiful friendship.
Yeah, but it's nobody would think that it would start over something like that. So it's so great. So why don't you tell the listeners what you're working on next and where they can go to learn more about you and your business?
Great, sure. So right now I'm really working and focusing on Brand Camp, which is my online course. And I'm really working to get that out to larger audiences and speaking at events and conferences. I've really been working on increasing the number of speaking engagements that I have, which ultimately helps me build my business. So hopefully people will just start seeing me everywhere. That's my big goal. And ultimately, I think I said this at the beginning, that my mission is really to help as many small business owners and those people who identify as solo entrepreneurs build successful brands. That's my mission. I want to help as many of them as possible, which is why I built the course in the way that I did online, so I can help that audience. So if you want to find me, you can check out my website. It's labcreative.ca. And on social media, you can find us kind of across the board at Lab Creative Inc.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you, Laura.
My pleasure.
So it's been really great to talk to you today. I really appreciate your honesty and your willingness to be emotional and share your story. I think it's really inspirational in that it could have derailed your whole life having that accident. Exactly. And instead you took a positive attitude. You looked forward with what are all the things I can accomplish. Even during that time when things would have been really muddled in your mind and a little bit chaotic, you had the presence of mind to think, I've got this settlement now. I want to make sure I plan for the future and I support myself with money when I want to do some things. And exactly. So I think that's absolutely incredible. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story.
My pleasure.
So, Young Millionaires in the Making, that's another episode of Young Money. I think you will all agree that we certainly learned a lot from Laura in terms of what key things can make somebody successful. So for her, being a doer, being outgoing, and being really good at what she does. And more importantly, the personality traits that go along with it that can help you be a success. So her positive attitude, her ability to be resilient, and to go out there and build community. So thanks for tuning in. Stay financially fit. And I'm sure you enjoyed this episode that was particularly inspirational as well as financially fit. Take care.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. To all you millionaires in the making out there, if you love this podcast, please subscribe on iTunes to keep your financial fitness training going. Oh, and leave us a review. And be sure to visit 2 S's, 2 T's, financialfitness.com to take your free financial fitness assessment. Find out how financially fit you really are. See you next week, young millionaires to be.